Even though it was so long, I was hooked for each minute. And I sometimes feel when I'm writing my own essays that probably the admissions committee won't even want to read through the entire thing because they might just feel
But we got
bored
to
with
create it like that. That's the point.
yeah.
Why do you think right now your story is the one that will go there? Okay. So when I say just one acronym really defines the admission process, and that acronym is this. Let's understand this first. This is the world we live in. The world is extremely volatile. One tweet from one person can really mean billions of dollars of pluses or minuses. Okay, one small virus can really get the world on its knees. We live in such uncertain times. Everything. So, okay, top jobs of any kind, as you probably understand, all top jobs deal with uncertainty. This is it. Anything that requires a large amount of uncertainty is the definition of a top job, first of all. There is something that you must understand, and that is what you'll carry forward. If you are looking at applying to a business school, eventually what is it that you're trying to become? Someone who has a well defined job, or someone whose job itself is dealing with only uncertainty? As you grow in your career, uncertainty is an everyday affair. What happens when you're a software engineer, for example? Okay, when you're an accountant means chartered accountant, or someone you're in audit, let's say, or you are a legal person or some. These also have their own uncertainties. The code is not working, the case is very new from the client, audit is very different, the bank, whatever. But this kind of uncertainty is still there. You can actually seek expert advice, you can actually solve this problem because the problem at least is well defined. Here in the world that we are today, leadership, because all business schools eventually look at leadership, all top companies eventually look at your leadership potential. And you might say, but I am an expert, why do I have to be a leader? Please remember, expert will always stop at a particular level. Always stop at a particular level. Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs started the company called Apple. Steve Wozniak being the expert who made the computer, probably nobody remembers him compared to Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was the guy who was the leader, who could actually inspire teams, who could get the best out of people, who could stand on stage and deliver, who could handle all the uncertainty of being fired from his own company and coming back and so on. That's the guy we remember. So we live in times where 1 second, and you say one thing, a CEO saying one thing, just one thing, and the stock market can absolutely derate your company. It can happen. It really can happen. So I read a very interesting quote early in life, and that was that the amount of success in life that you can achieve is directly proportional to the amount of uncertainty you can handle. Please listen to this carefully. The amount of success in life you can achieve is directly proportional to the amount of uncertainty you can achieve. Okay, a team player versus a team's captain, an employee versus the entrepreneur. Who handles more uncertainty? Tell me, who handles more uncertainty? We're very clear about
Entrepreneur.
it, the entrepreneur.
Captain and
Because any
entrepreneur.
single day there are 10,000 functions that this guy is responsible for. One thing going wrong in the entire system, and this is the only person where the buck stops, where all the blame comes. The problem is also not that the problem is today's problems are not well defined. Before we had COVID, no company in the world would have known what COVID was. Uncertainty is the name of the game. I'll just give you an example how things collapse in today's world. General Electric, you know, one of the most celebrated corporations of America over 100 years. Till 2001, GE was so popular it became the most valuable company. There was an MBA program about to be launched at that time, GE style of leadership. And Jack Welch, the guy who retired as CEO, he launched his own MBA program later. Now, the moment Jack Welch retired in 2001, it was the most celebrated company, ahead of Apple, ahead of Microsoft, ahead of everything. The day Jeff Immelt is the new CEO who took over, the very day we had 9/11, and GE's office was in New York. The very day, इतने बुरे दिन आ गए थे कि Jack Welch, when he left, Jack Welch retired with an extremely great career, everything great, all of that. This guy, the moment he took over, And Warren Buffett se jaake they had to sell some stock to even run the company for some time. Then 2007-8 recession. Now somebody who's working at GE, who can steer the company through this crisis, is the biggest leader. Okay, Intel, we know Intel as one of the biggest chip makers, this, that, one of those most celebrated companies. In 1990s, there was a flaw in the chip something, and it was called Pentium flaw crisis. At that time, someone called Andy Grove, the CEO of Intel at that time, he actually saw the company through extremely difficult times, wrote a book later called Only the Paranoid Survive, and it was called the Pentium flaw crisis. He really could tide over the company because the problem was totally unseen. I'll give you one more example. We know about IBM as one of those companies that today is totally dominating the services and the data market to a very large extent. It's a very strong name. IBM was only making computers and laptops at that time. The guy who took over IBM when IBM was ailing, bleeding, and it was almost on the verge of tanking, folding up, the guy who took over, Lau Gertzner, who was not from IT industry, he was an outside CEO. The first thing he did was he sold his PC and laptop business to some other company called Lenovo. And he said, we'll go into services. Unless, now look at the problems. The company is about to fold up, a 100-year legacy company. This is the DNA that you need to carry from today. And you might say, but ye to 20 saal baad aayega when I work. No. There are people at the age of 18 who can think like this. And there are people at the age of 68 also who can't think, and both being in business. So it is something that we got to develop. And how to develop it, today I'll talk about it. But the more you showcase your ability to handle this in your application, the more a top 5 school is likely to take you. Otherwise, you settle for a decent school. Decent means someone, yeah, it will give you one level of jump in your career, but it won't make you CEO of a Fortune 500 corporation. My students have become CXOs of some of the top companies in the world. They regularly chat with me. Even today, I'll share some of the stories today. Why is that? Because they really understood this game very well. Now, how to showcase it? New, and I have nothing in my profile. How will I showcase this? That's not even the point. You got to find a way to showcase it. Now, how? Let's understand this. Okay, everything is ambiguous today. Problems are not well defined. Forget solutions. McKinsey today has been hired by one of the South American governments that for the last 5 years, because of this currency crisis, we've been having this civil war and it has not been stopping. Can you step in and do something? Now imagine if McKinsey hires you and you are part of that team, you go to South American country, you don't know the language, you don't know the people, you don't know the culture, nothing. And in that, the country itself is not able to solve the problem. Politicians are not able to solve. Entire world government, UN, and now you're asked to chip in and say that, fine, I have to stop the civil war, I have to solve this currency crisis. You might find all this too outrageous that, oh, ye sab kya hai? Mera job to simple hai, desk pe baithne ka. This is not how the world is today. If you are paid $250K, remember, you are expected to perform with absolute uncertainty at hand. And you might say, but I don't have anything. I'll tell you how to create it. The point is not about having, the point is making them believe. So my answer to that is there are so many more examples you can find. I can give examples from today, just not even yesterday, today itself, that will be really relevant. The point is, do you even think like that? Is this even your remotest thought? Is this your remotest thought? Today, Facebook, for example, reigning company in 2016, everything's absolutely fabulous. There was this problem that Russian hackers did something, they rigged the US election. Facebook had no role in it. Facebook is a platform that allows you to post anything. Now you post anything because of that some government or something happened. Then the company was almost, I mean, US regulators were very harsh on it. Whereas actually speaking, I also feel the guy may have lied, the guy may have done anything, dodged, but it was not their fault. They really can't do anything about what people post beyond a point. Now this, imagine what kind of uncertainty. One day you're the darling of the stock markets, you're genuinely valued at something like $700 billion or 500 billion, and the next day you're not even sure whether we'll exist or not, because regulators can't do anything to you. So we exist in an extremely complex environment, and please remember today, management and leadership can be defined in just 2 words: managing complexity. Anyone who just doesn't understand this is going to really find things very difficult. Now you might say, but I'm just an expert, I know only my job. No, you can't really be a leader. You will not be promoted. You will not be getting the topmost assignment. So you have to develop this in your personality. And how to showcase it is very different from whether you have it or not. Later on, you can develop it. So today's session is not about whether you have it or not. You may not have. Okay, so this is the first point. Any pointers here? Now you can tell me if what you feel. Please tell me.